Ever get that, like a sudden chill? You know what I mean? Like you're in a room and it's like whoosh, and maybe you hear a whisper when no one's around, or you just feel this like dread that just kind of comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Or even like those nightmares that really stick with you.
Mm-hmm. Those are intense.
Yeah, maybe it's not just your imagination playing tricks on you.
Right. Exactly. That's what we're going to really dive into today. All those unseen forces, entities.
Ooh, spooky.
And we have a special guest, Rachel Stavis. She literally wrote the book on this Sister of Darkness.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that one.
Yeah, it's amazing. She's like the real deal, helping
Yeah.
people understand and deal with, all the entities that could be messing with their
From
lives.
like everyday folks to celebrities, I hear.
Yeah, she's worked with everyone, like Oscar winners, rock stars, you name it.
Wow. So how did she even get into this whole like exorcism thing?
Well, it's pretty wild, actually. So she could actually see entities as a kid. Yeah, but like a lot of us probably would. She just kind of brushed it off, figured it was her imagination. Or maybe something was wrong with her.
Yeah, I can see that. Makes sense.
Yeah, so it wasn't until she got into a car accident when she was 30
Oh wow.
that her ability to see these things became like undeniable, like a veil was lifted, and she
Hmm.
just couldn't ignore it anymore.
It's interesting. She uses that word veil because isn't that how she describes like the barrier between our world and the spirit world?
Yeah, exactly. And get this, she believes that veil is getting thinner.
Thinner, like weaker.
Making it easier for these entities to cross over and, mess with us.
Okay, so why is that happening?
hmm
Is it like because more people are into the supernatural these days, all those ghost hunting shows and stuff?
Well, she says that's part of it. The more we focus on that world, the more we open ourselves up to it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But she also thinks all the negativity in the world plays a role. Like it creates this environment where these low vibrational entities can just thrive.
So all those Ouija boards and those ghost hunting apps, maybe not the best idea then.
Yeah, it's like leaving the door open and saying, come on in to anything.
Not the kind of guests I'd want.
Nope.
So let's talk about these different entities Rachel mentions. Like what kinds are out there? I know she talks about something called a Clive.
Clive, this sounds kind of cute.
Right. But don't let the name fool ye. Rachel says these Clives are like little energy vampires.
Energy vampires, like what do they do?
Well, they feed off our negative emotions. So like if you're feeling down or stressed, a Clive could be making it worse.
Soap juice.
And here's the kicker. She thinks 85% of people have a Clive attached to them.
85%. So like most of us listening right now, that's a little freaky.
It is, but the good news is they're kind of easy to get rid of.
Oh.
Well, they're attracted to low vibrational energy. So the key is to raise your vibration.
Okay, but what does that even mean? Raise your vibration. It sounds kind of new agey.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But Rachel explains it as shifting your energy to a more positive state. Like think meditation being in nature, gratitude, stuff like that.
So just being more positive overall.
Exactly. Makes sense, right?
Yeah, I guess. But what about the entities that are a bit scarier than a Clive? I know she mentioned something called wraiths in her book.
Yeah, wraiths are a whole different story. They're linked to like sleep paralysis and night terrors. Have you ever experienced sleep paralysis?
I haven't, but I've heard it's terrifying. Like you can't move or speak even though you're awake.
Right. And people often feel like something's sitting on their chest.
Yeah, that sounds awful.
It is. And that's where the wraiths come in. Rachel thinks they're attracted to people who've gone through trauma or abuse, like in this life or even past lives.
So like past trauma can make you vulnerable to these things?
Exactly. And what's really interesting is she's found that wraiths can be passed down through families.
You mean like inherited?
Yeah. So if your parents or grandparents went through some heavy stuff, you might be more susceptible to wraith attachment.
That's heavy. Like a negative inheritance you don't even know about.
Exactly. And unfortunately, wraiths are tougher to deal with than Clives. Raising your vibration can help, but you might also need to deal with the trauma that's attracting them in the first place.
So it's like healing on a deeper level.
Right. But here's the good news. Rachel says we're not powerless against these things. We can stand up to them, take back our power, create a more positive energy for ourselves.
That's good to hear. But before we get into that, let's talk about another type of entity Rachel describes, tricksters.
Oh yeah, tricksters. They're all about manipulation and deception. They often show up as something we want, like an imaginary friend, a guardian angel, even a spirit guide.
So they're like shapeshifters, pretending to be something good to gain our trust.
Exactly. And they're really good at reading our minds, figuring out what we want to see and hear.
So how do you tell if it's a real spirit guide or a trickster?
That's a great question. Rachel says to look at the overall impact the entity's having on your life. Like if you're always dealing with chaos and drama, even though you think this being is helping you, it might be time to question who's really in charge.
Makes sense. So it's not about if they're giving you what you want, but if they're actually helping you grow in a positive way.
Right, because sometimes what we think we want isn't actually what's best for us. And that's where tricksters can be so dangerous. They prey on our desires and fears and keep us stuck in bad cycles.
Yeah, be careful what you wish for, right?
Exactly. With tricksters, you might get what you want, but at a big cost.
That's something to think about. Okay, so we've talked about Clive's, wraiths, tricksters. These all seem to operate on like an individual level.
Right.
But Rachel also describes some entities that are way more powerful, ones that can impact tons of people, even whole societies.
Yeah, things get really intense when we start talking about those. She calls them realm walkers.
Realm walkers. Just
Yeah.
the name sounds scary, like something from another dimension.
Right. So basically, Rachel says these are like highly intelligent and like super malevolent beings.
Yeah.
They can influence huge numbers of people.
So like way more powerful than the others we've talked about.
Oh, yeah, way more. And they tend to hang out in places with lots of people coming and going, and places with a history of trauma, like hotels, hospitals, even whole cities.
So places with a lot of energy swirling around.
Exactly. And they feed off that energy. Then they use it to manipulate stuff and influence people in power, like politicians and stuff.
Are you saying these things can influence like world events?
That's what Rachel believes. She even thinks some of the biggest events in history were orchestrated by realm walkers.
That's kind of terrifying. So like wars, natural disasters, even like political movements.
Yeah, and it's not always about causing chaos and destruction.
Yeah.
It's more like they're playing the long game,
Mm.
you know, using people to kind of nudge society in a certain direction.
So they're like master manipulators.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They might attach to someone who's going to be super influential
Yeah.
and use them to push their agenda.
It makes you wonder how much of what we think is free will is actually being influenced by these things.
Yeah, it's a big question.
Mhm.
And Rachel doesn't pretend to have all the answers. But she does think the more aware we are of these entities, the better we can resist their influence.
So knowledge is power.
Right. And speaking of powerful entities, there's one more category Rachel talks about. The collectors.
Collectors, that almost sounds harmless.
Don't let the name fool you. Collectors are all about haunting places, especially those with a lot of past trauma, like where some tragedy happened.
So they're like the ones behind all the really haunted houses and stuff.
Exactly. But it's more than just making a place feel spooky. They actually trap deceased people in those spaces.
Why?
They use those trapped spirits to scare the living and to like amplify the energy of the location.
So it's like a haunted house, but with a puppet master controlling everything.
Exactly. That's why places like the Lizzie Borden house or those spots from American Horror Story feel so heavy and oppressive. It's not just the history. It's the collector and all those trapped spirits.
I've heard people say it feels like stepping into another dimension when they go to those places, like the veil's super thin there.
Right. Rachel's even encountered collectors that are so strong they can feed off the energy of people just taking pictures outside.
Wow, that's crazy. You really have to be mindful of the energy of places you visit.
Definitely. But even with collectors, there's hope. Rachel's found that if you can help the trapped spirits move on, you can weaken the collector's hold on the place.
So it's like a spiritual rescue mission?
Kind of. It takes compassion and understanding. Because those deceased people are just like us, but without bodies. They have their own fears and issues that are keeping them stuck.
So even in the spirit world, people need healing and closure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what's so cool about Rachel's work. It's not just about getting rid of bad spirits. It's about understanding the whole spirit world and helping everyone find peace.
That's amazing. But it can't be easy work. In her book, Rachel talks about this one time she was physically attacked by an entity at this old inn.
Oh yeah, that story's wild. The inn had this tragic fire in its past, and the entity there was controlling all the deceased people, making them aggressive.
So it was like a whole army of ghosts.
Basically, Rachel said it took everything she had to remove that entity, and she still feels its presence sometimes.
So even with all her experience, she's still at risk. It shows how powerful these things can be.
Definitely. It's a reminder that the spirit world is vast and we're always learning.
So how does she even do this work every day? What's a typical day like for an exorcist?
There's no such thing as typical for Rachel. She gets called to all kinds of places, from movie sets to people's homes. Sometimes it's to cleanse a space. Sometimes it's to help someone who's dealing with an entity attachment.
So it's always different. What's the one thing she always emphasizes no matter what the case is?
Respect for the spirit world. Setting clear boundaries. And never underestimating the power of kindness.
Kindness, really? That seems kind of strange for dealing with negative entities.
I know, but it actually works. Remember, these things feed on negativity and fear. So being kind raises your vibration and makes you less of a target.
So it's like putting up a shield of good vibes.
Exactly. And Rachel even tells people to just tell negative energies to F off.
Seriously.
Yeah, it's about standing your ground and refusing to be a victim.
I like that. It's about taking back control.
And the coolest part is you don't have to be a trained exorcist to do this. Rachel says connecting with the spirit world is our birthright, and she encourages everyone to explore their own spiritual abilities.
That's empowering. So how can our listeners do that?
She has this exercise called the 30-day connection to spirit. It only takes 5 minutes a day. It is all about inviting spirit into your body and opening up to guidance from higher beings.
Sounds interesting. And anyone can do it.
Anyone. It's just about taking that first step and realizing you're not alone on this journey.
This has been such a mind-blowing conversation. It's made me realize there's so much more to reality than we see.
Me too. Rachel's work is a reminder that we have way more power than we think. And it makes you wonder, if deceased people can work through their issues and grow in the spirit world, what does that mean for us while we're still here?
It's a deep question. It makes you think maybe death isn't the end, but just a continuation of our journey.
Right. And maybe we should focus less on fearing the unknown and more on living our best lives right now.
Absolutely. And that's what Rachel's work is all about. Understanding the spirit world helps us understand ourselves better and how everything's connected.
We're not just physical beings, we're energetic beings too. And our thoughts and actions have a bigger impact than we realize.
It's humbling, but also empowering. It means we have the power to shape our reality in this life and maybe beyond.
So what does this all mean for you, listener? What can you take away from all this?
The biggest thing is you're not alone. Whether you believe in entities or just the power of energy, there's this whole interconnected web of life beyond what we can see.
And there's support and love out there for anyone who seeks it. Don't be afraid to explore your spirituality. Ask questions, challenge your beliefs, and open yourself to the possibilities.
Like Rachel showed us, true power comes from embracing all parts of ourselves, even the weird parts. It's about acknowledging those unseen forces and learning how to deal with them with wisdom, compassion, and a little humor.
Exactly. And if you're feeling adventurous, try Rachel's 30-day connection to spirit exercise. It's a simple way to tap into your own spiritual abilities and connect with that loving guidance that's always there.
You never know what you might find.
That's the exciting part. The journey of spiritual exploration is full of surprises and growth.
So embrace the mystery, keep asking questions, keep learning, and stay open to the wonder around us.
And if you like this deep dive into Rachel's world, make sure to subscribe to the deep dive for more fascinating explorations delivered straight to your ears. Until next time, stay curious and stay weird. You know, it's kind of mind-blowing to think we might actually have more power over these entities than we think. Like Rachel talks about setting boundaries, telling those negative energies to scram, using some strong language even.
Yeah, I know. It's like, wait, what? But it does make sense. If we think about it, we don't have to be victims.
Yeah.
We can take back control of our own energy.
It's like saying, hey, this is my space, back off.
Exactly. And I
Yeah.
think that's something that really speaks to people, especially those who felt powerless in other parts of their lives.
Yeah, it's about standing up for yourself.
Right. Absolutely. And it all ties back to Rachel's main message, empowering people to understand and navigate this unseen world. It's not about being scared or superstitious. It's about knowledge, awareness, and taking action.
Right, and one of the most practical things she talks about is that 30-day connection to spirit exercise.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Just 5 minutes a day.
It's like meditation.
Right,
Helps you connect with your own spiritual abilities.
exactly. And anyone can do it, no matter what you believe or where you're coming from.
It's about tapping into that universal energy we all share, realizing we're not alone.
Exactly. And it brings us back to that question we were talking about earlier.
Mm.
If even deceased people can work through their stuff and grow in the spirit world, what does that mean for us while we're still here?
It's a huge question, right?
Yeah.
It makes you think maybe this life isn't the be-all and end-all. Maybe it's just one chapter in a much bigger story.
Right. So maybe instead of being afraid of the unknown, we should just embrace the present moment,
Yeah.
live our best lives, learn from our mistakes.
Yeah, because the journey doesn't end here.
So for anyone listening who's like, okay, I'm hooked, tell me more about this, Rachel. Where can they find her book and stuff?
Her book, Sister of Darkness, is everywhere books are sold. And you can check out her website at website address. She's also pretty active on social media.
Awesome. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of modern exorcism, what are some of the key takeaways you hope people will remember?
Well, the biggest one is that we have so much more power than we realize. We're not just puppets for these entities,
Right. We can understand them, protect ourselves, and create a positive energy around us.
and we can do that by raising our vibration, setting boundaries, and connecting with our own spiritual abilities.
Exactly. It's about taking control of our own energy in our lives.
Well said. So if you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to subscribe to the deep dive for more awesome explorations delivered right to you. Until next time, keep exploring, keep those questions coming, and stay open-minded. The world's full of mysteries, and we're here to help you figure them out.